name's Eric Doernhoefer. I own Renovo Fitness, and I am also the physical training officer at the Ohio Fire Academy. We met each other very early on when I was getting Renovo up and running. I think we were actually in the construction phase, and we're thinking about how to really bring in more clients. And my father had mentioned that he belonged to a gym that had this wonderful service in the morning where once you got done with your workout, there was hot coffee, freshly brewed and ready. I think we were going over for, was it Taste of Hilliard?
It was, yeah.
Taste of Hilliard, and my business partner at the time and I were volunteering to work the parking lot. Nate strolls up, or rode up, I should say, on his coffee dispensing bicycle, and I just knew, I was like, that's the guy I gotta talk to. If I want coffee in my gym, that's the guy. So I basically, in my bright orange traffic vest, jumped in front of him and was like, hey, do you do coffee? And I think I took you by surprise a little bit, but that's how we first met, was me being very eager about finding a coffee guy, and then the world produced one for me on an awesome coffee bike. So Renovo operates as a 24-hour access facility, and we also do personal training, and we have some small group classes. At the time, before the pandemic, we were also the corporate wellness partner for the Hilliard City School District. So we were going on site to different schools and doing fitness classes for the teachers and the employees. So really, I think Renovo actually saw a really good snapshot of average Hilliard. We had some high school kids that were athletes. We had a lot of parents, both fathers and mothers. We had some young couples that were coming in to Hilliard looking for an area to start a family. We had some people who'd been here forever, who are retired. So yeah, we had a little bit of everything.
What did you have to do to shift your focus with COVID and that sort of stuff?
So the big thing that really saved us, and I will never understand how this came to her, but at the time, my younger sister Liz was also working with us. So at the time, right before the pandemic, it was me and Bear and Liz. And my sister had gone to school for business and econ and had minored in exercise science. So the division of the business was basically me as sort of the head trainer in the face, Bear is one of the other major instructors, and Liz was doing some instructing but was honestly keeping the business running as a business. And thank God she was there, because I will always vividly remember we were standing in the gym and we have, TVs over the cardio equipment, and the news came on about the pandemic and specifically about the shutdown. And Liz and Bear and I and maybe 2 or 3 other clients were all standing there watching this. And DeWine made the announcement that we were gonna go into quarantine. And Bear and I kind of stood there, we're like, okay, what does that mean? And he and I are kind of trying to figure out what's gonna happen next. I turn around and my Liz is gone. And so I didn't really think too much about it. Bear and I are still kind of, a little bit in panic mode. Next thing I know, Liz emerges from the office with this huge stack of papers. And I don't know where she got the idea, but she had drafted and then printed hundreds of copies of lease agreements for our equipment. And she handed them to Bear and I. She said, I already put a post out on Facebook and on other social media. We have 48 hours before the shutdown begins. You two are in charge. We are going to lease out, and you guys are going to hand deliver any piece of equipment we can get out the door that people want. So for 48 hours, Bear and I would grab, someone would say, hey, I'd love an exercise bike. We'd load an exercise bike into Bear's truck, or I'd love a bench and 25 and 35 pound dumbbells, and we'd load it in the truck, and we were driving all over Central Ohio, dropping equipment off. People would give us their credit card, and it would just be sort of an auto reoccurring thing, I think we were doing it every 2 weeks. Not charging a ton, just a little bit. If at some point they didn't want it, they just had to let us know. We would stop charging them, and we'd designate a day. They'd put the equipment out on their front door, and then Bear and I would go and get it. We were living together at the time, so it made it easier for him and I to coordinate that. But that was huge for us because, for the fitness industry in particular, for us, we're one of the few gyms, I think, that one of the big selling points for us is the person-to-person connection. We don't really have much of a digital presence because personally, I think you lose a lot in that. So that was a great tool that we used to sort of manage that. You mentioned it. We did attempt to do a couple sort of Zoom workouts, but to be honest, we didn't even really charge for those. I mean, we were mostly just trying to keep our people together and kind of keep them. We knew that this was going to end. We were pretty sure it was going to end, and it did, but we wanted to keep them on something that kind of looked like routine. Other than that, Liz was amazingly aggressive about all the small business loans and stuff like that. So she basically kept us afloat just with her tenacity and wherever that brilliant idea to lease the equipment came from. It was very different when things started opening back up. I would say it's more or less the same now as it was prior to, but right when they were starting to open things back up, fortunately for us, one of the design features of our studio is that we have the main open gym floor, but we have private areas where the personal training can occur. And that ended up being a huge benefit for us when they started allowing businesses to operate again, but you had to manage social distancing. Well, it turns out that we had just inadvertently built safe zones where one trainer and one client could operate with nobody else around. And all the equipment was already back there, so re-sanitizing everything was super simple. We had to change the workouts slightly. We had to make sure that the clients were going to perform exercise that didn't necessarily need a spotter, because you didn't want to necessarily, you wouldn't close that distance. The 24 hours, it took a long time for that to come back. And then even when we were able to offer that again, it kind of took a little while for people to start feeling comfortable coming back again. One of the other big benefits that we had was it's not a very big gym, which meant that a lot of people figured out very quickly that it was really easy for us to stay on top of the cleaning. To this day, we actually still get probably 2 or 3 people a month that come over and get a membership because they are fed up with how unclean some of the larger gyms are. And I don't blame the larger gyms. I mean, it's a chore to clean ours, and we're 2,600 square feet. Some of these gyms out there that are 10,000 square feet, I have no idea how they keep those clean. One of the first things is always, where are we at physically now, right? What's our starting point? What is our current capabilities? What are our current aches and pains? But the big question is, I usually try to push clients to really come up with an answer to, what is it that you want to do? If I have a client who says, I want to try out for the Olympics, and I have another client that says, I want to be able to play with my grandkids, those two people do not get the same training program. Those are wildly different in goals. So when you and I were working together, you had described some of the tasks that you had to do at the job, picking up giant bags of beans and stuff like that, and basically being on your feet all day. You had mentioned things like pain in the back and stuff like that. So I know at some point you and I talked, and I sort of pushed it. I was like, okay, but what's your goal? What do you want? And we finally got to the point where you said you wanted to feel good. If you looked good as well, that's a bonus, but you really wanted to make sure you could do the job that you like doing and not be at risk of pain. Those are the driving forces that really bring what the workout looks like. I don't know that most people would automatically associate coffee with fitness, but of all the things that people could be putting in their bodies these days, especially with like how crazy energy drinks and stuff are, I'd like to think that a lot of people who are preferring coffee are probably at least making a relatively healthy choice. I know sometimes coffee can get a little crazy. If that's the difference between them coming to the gym or not, right? Like they're on the fence, and they're like, yeah, but if I go, like I'll get my cup of coffee and it helps me kind of start my day. Awesome, I'm in. On top of that, I'm also a small business owner in a growing town, but relatively small, comparatively speaking, and having someone to bounce ideas off of, even though we're in a completely different industry, has been enormously helpful. Being able to joke about some of the crazy things you see as a small business owner has been nice to have a partner to commiserate with on occasion.
So true.
You offered to provide coffee for us, so that helps me because I have another thing that I can offer my clients that they like. It helps you. We put the Coffee Connections logo in there so people know the coffee they're drinking is coming from you. Your name gets out there. people obviously enjoy it. And then in exchange, you and I have worked together and we provided a fob so that your employees can use the facility. It keeps your people happy and healthy. It keeps my people well caffeinated and coming back.